was specially prepared for presentation during Accent on Ability Week. The Ronald and Doreen, she's called, skippered by Herb Pittman of Englee. This vessel and her crew are probably one of the most successful examples of how the longliner fishery is supposed to work. Ask anybody in White Bay about Herb Pittman, and you'll hear stories about a man who's carried passengers to every part of that bay in all weather conditions. Or about a fisherman whose determination and skill have made him a constant highliner in that area. All remarkable achievements in their own right, but even more remarkable because Herb Pittman has the use of only one hand. A childhood accident while preparing ice for the salmon fishery caused him this loss. Each Monday morning, Herb and his crew, consisting of Bernard Carroll, Benedict Castle, and his son Ron, there on the right, leave Englee for the week-long fishing trip up the bay. Herb Pittman originally came from Harbour Deep, but now resides here in Englee. Its population of just over 1,000 comes from old settled families dating back almost 200 years, and people who've moved in from places like Canada Harbour, Williamsport, Grey Islands, and Hooping Harbour. This fish plant was built in 1942 by Joe Brothers and John Reeves Limited, and is now solely controlled by the Lake Group Limited. Recent expansion permits the plant to bring in large quantities of fish from other areas, thereby employing greater numbers of local people. For Herb Pittman's family, the sea has meant prosperity, but only after long hours and hard work. With father up in White Bay all week, each mealtime looks like this. For Herb's daughters, Sharon and Doreen, along with a visiting nephew from Little Harbour Deep, it's a way of life they've come to know and understand. A typical family scene if we're to visit the home of a deep-sea draggerman, but a lot less common when we visit the home of a longliner operator. For a closer look at this longliner operation, let's join Herb and his crew as they prepare to leave early Monday morning.
We most commonly meet to the boat, the dock. There's 4 of us, 4 in crew, so we all meet there about 4 o'clock in the morning. And about 10 or 15 minutes from that, we're on the way. It's dark in the morning when you leave. You use your radar anyway. But we still use our compass too. We steer by the compass and we watch the radar. See if there's any icebergs in the way or any boats or anything. It's most every fishing boat is on the move that time of the morning, eh? When we leave here, we go out around the island, Englee Island we call it. And then we head up in the White Bay, which we run up around the southwest coast to our gear. There's absolutely no shoals whatsoever. You can go close to the shore, or you can go wherever you feel like it, as far as shoals is concerned. But the most thing you keep away from the shore for is, in the spring of the year, there's lots of salmon gear in the water, so you have to keep off at least a half a mile in order to keep away from the salmon gear. Well, that morning when we left there, it was fairly good, but there was a storm of wind came from the southwest, and we at the same time we were towing a boat, and you can't very well handle gill nets and tow a boat. You must leave the boat, or otherwise you can't shoot out your gear. You can take it in okay, but you can't shoot it out behind you with a boat in tow because you'd have your boat in your gear. It's a boat full of gill nets, and I guess you'd have some gill nets torn up too. So we went on in and waited for the storm to be over. The Granfers Cove is the nearest cove to where I fish my gear, and we go in there usually every night when we're in that area. Always somebody around there, yeah, when the stormy weather. Most boats go in there for shelter. Cecil Newman from Aberdeen was there, and they ran to him gay. It's one of the best coves is on this coast that you can anchor up and have shelter for the night. When we go to set salmon gear in the spring, we most commonly get the moorings ready and our span line and the shore fast and so on. So we get it all ready. We hook up our moorings to our grapnels and anchor buoys or whatever we call them. We get it all ready.
The last of the salmon gear is readied, just as another boat from the Harbour Deep longliner fleet arrives.
Well, we tie on our moorings we use certain knots to tie our moorings onto our salmon gear, so if any ice, Arctic ice or anything had come along, we had to pull in the nets. Well, we had to make sure that we got our moorings tied on so that we can untie it pretty fast, you know.
It's a chance for all hands to get a lunch, and this means the land and sea crew too. With fresh salmon, compliments of Cease Newman on the menu, it's watch out for the elbows time. We may have been a little slow to help in the preparation of the fishing gear, but when it comes to eating, we're always eager to help out. On Herb's boat, each crew member takes turns preparing meals. But it's only on stormy days like this, when they're in a sheltered cove, do all hands get a chance to eat at the same time. Usually when they're out on the grounds taking back nets, it's one man at a time scraveling below to get a bite, then back on deck to work the nets. So the shelter of Granfers Cove is a welcome sight this Monday. Later that evening, when the wind dropped out, we headed to Little Cat Head to place the salmon nets in the water.
Sorry, Benny.
Just untie you.
Right. Now you hold that span on then, Brian. We land a man on the shore and he makes the shore fast to a stake drove in the crack of a rock.
Right on top. More useless.
And then we run out our span line and then our main mooring go out and then the rest of the moorings, like one for the hock and some middle moorings. When we get the moorings all out, then we tie on the net and untie the span line, and we pull back the span line and let out the net until we get in all the moorings, and we tie the moorings fast to the net as we pull in the span line. Yeah. When we get to the last end of the net, we're out to the last mooring, so we tie it on and put on our hock line, form the pound.
With the salmon net now secure for the season, the Ronald and Doreen headed back to Harbour Deep for the night. Early next morning, with the wind dropped out, it looked like a promising day for the gill nets. As we cleared the entrance to Harbour Deep, we passed a huge iceberg that had grounded there for weeks. This one, fortunately, wasn't near a salmon berth. But the salmon fishery was something for a later time. A day had already been lost, and it was now time to start picking those nets.
Well, the first thing, when you go to take back a gill net, you go and hook up the buoy with the gaff, and you take the mooring around the gurdy and pull away until that the gurdy haul it up until that you get to the net. Why, regardless, you don't know if there's any fish or not, but you got to pull it in to see, find out. So as you take it back, if there's any fish, worthwhile, you probably get 150 up to 200-300 pound out of the net. And the net, well, when I say net, I mean net about 50 fathoms long. We most generally use 10 of them tied on a hen. Bendick usually take the net from the gurdy, and sometimes if there's a lot of fish, he picks some of the fish too. The other boys behind pulls back the net and gets it ready to set out again, and they pick out the remaining part of the fish. Most commonly a lot of crab.
You run into that very often?
Well, not now. Those last 3 or 4 years, we don't find the crab too bad at all. At first, we used the nets with no floats into it, and well, you seemed like you could put them out anywhere and you'd get crab in them. But since we started using our nets floated out good, we don't get as many crab, although we do get some. we don't think it's too bad because we're quite used to it. And the hardest part we think about it is that we can't sell it. There's no market for it. I don't imagine there's any market for crab that's broken up anyway, and you got to break it up to get it out of the net.
Do you think there's enough in this area for more licenses, or?
Definitely is. There definitely is enough crab in this area for more boats. I'm sure of that, because the boats that is fishing for crab in the White Bay area, they fish out around the Orse Islands, and there's beds of crabs between the Orse Islands and the mainland part of the island that has never been touched. When you can haul up about 9,000 pound of crab in 9 gillnets, well then you know there must be crab around.
Is this a bay you can do much trawl fishing in, or is it just pretty well gill nets the way you have to fish those grounds up there?
Well, it could be used for trawls if everybody used trawls, but it's not. One fellow can't use trawls and the next fellow nets and the next fellow trawls again when you're all fishing around in the same bay and you're only probably half a mile away, and there's times the tide would sweep away a fleet of gear, and if one fellow was using trawls and somebody else was using nets, well, a fleet of gill nets could be swept away with the tide and cross the trawl. So you can't use gear that way. Nets and trawls don't match. The wheel that I use close to the gurdy is used to keep the boat headed up towards the tide so that she won't drift away and tow your net back over the rocky bottom and tear up your net. So you use the wheel to keep her head to the tide, and you also use the throttle and gear shift, the gurdy controls and all. Right now, there's a lot of boats in the bay from different areas. And then again, if late in the fall and the weather is bad, if they can't make a living somewhere else, well, you can't blame them to come in the bay where we fish, because everybody needs to get a living. And I do think that there should be more control on the gill nets. For instance, most people now is using 5.5 and 5 1/4 inch mesh to catch turbot, which I think is unfair to ourselves and plus our families that's coming up behind us, because we're catching the turbot that's, well, apparently too small. You know, the turbot shouldn't be caught up at that stage. I think what goes through a 6-inch mesh, I think, should be left in the water to catch when it gets big enough in the 6-inch. Because right now there's a lot of 5.5 and 5 1/4 and even 5-inch gear that's out that should never be. I mean, we're only destroying the turbot from ourselves, and the next fellow is coming up behind. I think that should be applied to the cod too. I mean, turbot and cod. We're getting a small quality of fish in those small mesh gear that we shouldn't be catching.
Green Bay Rover, Ronald Doreen. You read back over.
Ronald Doreen, Green Bay Rover. Well, you Yeah, we got 38 back. I believe there's 8 codfish on that over.
I guess I get your point, right? Yeah, we done a bit better than that, but I know we might have 50 or 60 fish, I guess, out of 30 nets. So it's pretty scarce bags over.
Thank you, that's right, but yeah, we had them out there deep water, we saw them out the other day for turbot. Not that many of them on the go either, see? Over.
I got your point back, son. No, but yeah, did you get your salmon gear yesterday evening, over?
Back and over. No, we never bothered. We never had no rope there. There was no one to get down the theater, so. So wait now, we're going to jack them down, right? Over.
Back, yes, I think. We put out one fleet there yesterday evening, back, put out a couple lots more. And we put out one fleet of salmon nets, so I guess we'll have to go back and have a look at them this evening. Might get one to fry, perhaps. But the nets that we took back there, backs, was in shoulder water, oh man. The inside end, there was only 60 fathom water backs over.
That's right, the fish must be moved in, eh? The fish must be moved in, oh man. Over.
Yes, that's right. I think it's moved in a bit. I found the water awful dirty down 150, 160 fathom backs. But from 130 now to 60, or 130 to 60 was not too bad at all, see? We're going back and look up the boy on the last fleet now, so I don't know if we're going to check them salmon nets or not, because it's going to be late till we get it all done. Yeah, very good then, Bax. Check with you again later on, probably, so all the best now. Good evening, Clara.
The boat was built in Newfoundland Harbour. I've had her 9 years. This is the 9th year. I had a permit to build a boat myself, but I couldn't very well do it because I only had one hand, so I got my brother-in-law to be the master builder as the boat, and he built her there where he lived. And that's where he lived in Newfoundland. It was well built. It's the first longliner that he ever built, but he made a good job of it. Well, I don't know as if she could be better. She's a good boat in rough water. She's a good boat anyhow, and she loads okay, sits in the water good, and she can make good time in fairly rough weather. I lost my arm when I was only 9 years old, and I grew up and learned to do things myself, and it appears to me as if I was born with one arm. The only reason why I shy away from it is because I can't get a license to go out. Like the crab fishery, for instance, well, I can't get a license. If I could get a license for the fish crab, that would be my main fishery. This season it has been pretty good because the season started a bit earlier. The hoist moved out approximately 3 weeks earlier than usual, so we had 3 weeks of very good fishing. Well, more or less before the time that we started other years.
Trying to sum up Herb Pittman in a few words is a difficult task. But no matter which way you look at him, there's one word that constantly arises: ability. His ability to fish and know the waters of White Bay is unsurpassed. His ability to share that knowledge and understanding has many times been witnessed by those who fish alongside him. And probably most important, his ability to inspire young Newfoundland fishermen and young Newfoundlanders in general. That ability is something we all have.